How does the heavy metal loving guy who called everybody dude, loved to go to biker bars, do you ever think that guy was going to be a head coach of an NFL football team?
I see what that is. Is that a 5? I think that's a 5.
When they hired this man named Dan Campbell,
we're going to get up, and on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off.
That's all you need to know. We're going to punch you in the mouth.
Dan Campbell is making history with the Detroit Lions.
It gives me a chance to go out and see some of our fans who I know will be out there.
Coach Campbell, he's great. He's one of the finest leaders I've been around.
Yep. But what is it about his leadership that turned this program around?
If we really want to go where we want to go, we got to get all the rest of this out of our stuff, man.
And I'm not talking about any other program. I'm talking about the Detroit Lions, a team that has failed to find any kind of success in decades, as far back as I can remember.
So normally what I do is I'll get 2 venti with 2 shots in.
Dan's the greatest leader I've been around. And
on a scale of 1 to Dan Campbell, how crazy is your coach?
But I love the way this guy is. He's fighting his ass off,
really
and he wants to win.
I'm so proud of you guys, all right? I feel how hard it is to win this league in the playoffs. I love this team now.
And I think that the guys they're playing for him now.
I got goosebumps, gentlemen. When you see your players give all that they have and you lose that way, it's tough.
I love having him as my coach, and I think he's the guy.
MCDC has turned the entire culture around in Detroit.
I think that this team is built in the image of Dan Campbell.
And he likes to lead, and he likes to have people who want to run through walls.
But Dan Campbell did all of this, and the way he did it for the people of Detroit and Lions fans everywhere, it couldn't be any more perfect.
12 games, but that was that portion of the season. So what the...
I want to give this game ball to Coach.
Let's find out what makes Dan Campbell such a good leader.
Today, I want to conclude our search process with the introduction of Dan Campbell as the new head coach of the Detroit Lions. Dan will be the first to tell you that winning is the only mission. But the way in which he plans to go about that is perhaps the most important. His football philosophy, founded on the principles of competition, identity, toughness, and operating with one heartbeat, is something I look forward to seeing come to light in Dan's time as our head coach.
Yeah, this is how I remember it. Lee, this is great. Thank y'all.
This is so exciting.
Appreciate it, man. I do. I'm gonna make y'all proud. We are. Thank you. Here's what I do know, is that this team is gonna take on the identity of this city, all right? And the city's been down, and it found a way to get up. All right, it's found a way to overcome adversity. All right, and so this team's going to be built on, we're going to kick you in the teeth. All right, and when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off. All right, and we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. All right, and on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up. And then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Wow. So that's 2 kneecaps, a chunk.
Oh my God.
5 shots.
I'm sorry, I was hiding under my desk.
Mike.
I mean, whoa. Who's going to beat that team?
There's only 2 kneecaps in a body, right? There's no...
His opening press conference was electric. At one point, he said, "You're going to knock us down? We're going to get up, and on our way up, we're going to bite your kneecap off."
Big question.
The first one is bitten off. He did not describe how the second kneecap will be
He just said
removed.
they're going to take it.
This whole kick in the teeth and bite at the knees, we need resuscitation.
And Dan Campbell being a head coach for the Detroit Lions is good for everybody. Is it going to be good for the Lions organization? I mean, TBD.
Believe me, I know 100% that biting a kneecap is a 15-yard penalty. I promise you I know that.
Did you know you were going to talk like that when you went up there, or is that just Dan Campbell got let out?
I'm big in speaking what's on your mind and what's from your heart, and that's the way I've always been. So to your point, no, I wanted to be me.
All I will just say this is I hope he knows when to call timeout, and I hope he knows when to throw the red challenge flag.
If I'm a Lions fan, I'm concerned. We're going to bite off their knee. I see what Campbell thinks he's trying to get across.
This press conference was kind of embarrassing.
Hiring Motor City Dan Campbell is the greatest thing the Detroit Lions have ever done.
Oh, geez.
Ever.
Oh,
this is awesome.
But you know what? When you got something to say and you believe in what you're going to say, to hell with everybody else.
It's funny, in his opening press conference, everyone references the biting kneecaps comment. However, if you watch that entire press conference, he lays out exactly what they're going to do. And that leads to one of his greatest attributes as a leader, vision.
I envisioned that we would have a chance to compete with the big boys.
And what I love about Dan, like from the beginning, he talked about it, right? And he's never wavered. And who's had more obstacles, who's faced more adversity than this group?
My job is to make this team better, make it competitive, make it a winner. Man, you got to have patience. There's a certain time for everything to get to where it needs to be. I'm not going to stand up here and give you coach speak, but I'm going to tell you this, man. This team is going to freaking take on your identity. All we can do is put the work in if we really want to go to where we want to go. I wanted this job. I wanted to be here. Man, I think this is a special place because I know this. When we bring a winner to this city, it's going to be something we can all be proud of. All I know is we stayed the course with what we believe in. I'm going to put the right coordinators in place. I'm going to put the right staff together with those coordinators and every time we get hit, we're going to get back up stronger. That's what I do know. I knew I could do this. I knew this was something that I felt like I was born to do.
I agree with you. Dan Campbell can coach my team any day of the week.
Absolutely, mine too.
And you keep fighting and you keep swinging, you keep believing that it'll turn.
You got to have these small battles first, right? You got to do it with one win, and one win's got to lead to two, and two's got to lead to three. And let's live in the moment, and let's stay true to what it really is.
So vision is extremely important, and Dan Campbell certainly has that. But it's not so much about having the vision, it's about getting everyone else around you to buy into that vision.
I never wavered, our coaches didn't, our players didn't, and I knew we were this close. And so did they. Man, we just stayed true to what we do and what we're about, and the guys, man, they just kept going. I'm telling you, it's a resilient group.
Those guys just had to keep getting more reps. They kept developing. We got great coaches, we got great teachers. They just kept getting better, and so all that just kind of came together.
When you lose the number of games we did and the guys come back in on Wednesday, you could assume we won. I mean, guys are back to work, man. They're grinding, they're on the tape, they're going out to practice competing.
I think, like Dan said, it was from the starters all the way down to the third stringers to the special teamers to everyone. It was all guys that showed up on Wednesday without batting an eye every single week, and if you weren't that way, we didn't want you here.
And nobody's batting an eye, nobody's pouting, nobody's moping. They just kept going, and they believed that the next game was the one. The next game was the one. If we just clean up a couple of things, they're looking at me, they're looking at our coaches. And if we believe in what we're telling them, I'm standing up there and they know I believe it, then they believe it. And they did.
He makes pushing through obstacles and adversity fun because he takes it on.
More importantly, we're not in the business of just stacking players. Let's find a vision for this guy.
Right.
And that's the type of team that he's built. Those guys believe in him.
Because when you find a vision for a guy, now you know how to play him, how to put him in your system.
He has a great way of relaying messages to us with his storytelling. He's able to tell stories and touch our hearts in ways that I feel like some people can't in his words.
He could be the most athletic guy in the world. If you don't have a vision for him, what are you going to do with him?
He had to get every single person within that franchise to buy into a culture change.
Was there a moment at all where you had any doubt where, like, am I losing this team a little bit?
I knew the guys were still in it. I knew we hadn't, lost the locker room, or guys were starting to question what.
He's empowering his players, right? He understands what the players want.
It is that fine line of, like, when things aren't going well, are guys still buying in?
I think that this team is built in the image of Dan Campbell.
Everyone wants to be a part of that, and everyone wants to be like, oh yeah, this happened, this bad thing happened. Whatever, dude, bring it on, let's go.
Right. Yeah, you can feel that when he speaks to the team.
Yeah.
I totally agree, Chase, with him empowering the players. He acts like a player, but he is in charge.
I never felt like we were far away, and the coaches knew that, and honestly, the players knew that. They knew if we just clean up one or two things, we are literally one play away from winning these games instead of losing.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have knocked it out of the park when it comes to draft picks. However, it's not so much about drafting talent, which is important, of course. It's more about drafting players who are compatible with the rest of the team.
Compatibility is more important than coachability. Talent sometimes can be overrated. I'm sorry to say it. If you get the right people, I think you're breeding success. That's how I view it.
Having the right guys, in terms of like when we first got here, we kind of broke it all the way down to the studs, but retaining the right guys and acquiring the right guys. And
I put my faith in people more than anything else. It's a people business, and I believe that.
It's about building a foundation of players who hold the same mental toughness as Dan Campbell, and then adding pieces that are compatible to that core.
And I knew that we could add people that were just like them. Well, what happens if guys don't believe anymore and they don't put in the work and they don't really care anymore? And fortunately, we built it that way to where we don't have guys like that either. Guys are willing to come to work.
Well, yeah, part of that's got to be too, like you can't just turn guys into that. A lot of them have to come like that. It's like you can't have a locker room full of guys that aren't that way and then make them that way, right? So like you probably had to prioritize like the sort of guy that was coming in here who was going to be able to withstand everything that the first year and a half was going to present.
Our core now, we're on year 3 with the core.
The core group of guys are that way, and everyone kind of conformed to that. But yeah, you can see they kept bringing in that type of guy over and over and over again, and you can feel the culture of the team building.
It's just a bunch of guys that, man, they want to better themselves. They want to learn from the game. They want to learn about the game, but they want to grow together.
It's easy to collect talent. Do they have the intangibles? Do they have the character? Do they have the what we call the football character, the self-efficacy, the passion for the game? Do they have those components to be the right guys? And that's what the core is made of.
And we do things a certain way here, top to bottom, and everybody believes in it and knows it. And when your core is that way, that's what gives you hope. We're a young, hungry team with the right veterans that we have that I think are battle-tested and ready to go. We've acquired some pieces. Brad acquired some pieces that we feel like are going to fit us and what we're about and fit the core.
The core group of guys, like you mentioned, we can kind of police ourselves in a lot of ways now. And we know when things are screwed up, and we don't need them to tell us. We can get it fixed. Hey, let us run that again.
The point is compatibility is important. It's highly important.
And as a result of that compatibility, mixed with everyone having that shared vision, a brotherhood is formed.
And one man's strength is another man's weakness and vice versa, and we know how to cover for each other. Being around the brotherhood and watching these guys grind, and the blood and the sweat and the tears and the... I try to be myself. I try not to coach speak.
That culture that he's built there is really what keeps sustaining you guys.
This is what's on my mind. This is how I feel, and I want them to feel my emotion. But I'm fortunate to be around a number of great men and women in this building, so and to be able to coach those guys is an honor. I want them to know when I speak, they feel me speak. Otherwise, I shouldn't be saying anything.
So the crew that he was building from the very beginning was a blue-collar bunch, probably pretty like-minded people they brought in, and he was a part of that. He hired a bunch of ex-players. Hey, we're going to be doing this thing together, man.
We got the right dudes in this room. We got the right dudes and the right coaches. Well, I like what we have. I certainly do. And there again, on paper, I feel really good about our unit.
Dan's the greatest leader I've been around and has cultivated this culture we have and our belief in each other.
I got a tremendous amount of respect for golf, so when he says something like that, that means something to me.
He knows, no, these are the guys who are kind of in my image. They're going to be successful in our program.
We're built to handle some stuff, and we did that today against a very good opponent. Right? And they love football. They play football. And that's what they respect. They respect their teammates and not anything else.
Hell yeah. And when you have an identity, that is really all anybody that is a failure is trying to search for.
When you're able to care more about the person next to you than your own
about yourself, you can do some pretty special things, and that's where we're at with this group.
There's nothing that would tell me that our guys won't put in the work and be ready to go and do what it takes.
It feels like they're pretty much a unified, one big unit over there.
It feels like they've done it right from the ground up.
I didn't learn anything. I got verification on what I already knew. And this is a resilient team. It already was a resilient team, and we added pieces to that resilient team. So
now it's almost like you can watch some players, and it's like that he'd be a good Lion. Like he'd be a good Lion.
I got a lot of really, really outstanding people around me. I'm fortunate. And that's a special group of men back in there. I've got an unbelievable staff now. I believe it with everything, and all that comes with it, man, it's just the best.
So on top of that brotherhood and that shared vision, you mix in Dan Campbell's passion and his ability to get to know the people underneath the helmets and the pads.
Put your ego in the back seat and let's get in the boat and let's all row the same direction, because when we all win, you'll win individually. I think being a good leader involves being a good listener.
To me, we owe everything to this game. And the game speaks for itself. Man, I got a plan, I swear to you. All I think about is you guys. That's all I think about, man.
I'm a big mind over matter person. I do believe you can will things to happen in some regard. Like if you are a really positive thinker, I believe that positive things can happen to you, and those around you begin to grow from that, and they feel your energy.
That's all I think about is you guys. There's blood, there's sweat, there's tears. I just need you to trust me, that's all, please. Don't ever disrespect this game, because it is, in my opinion, it's the greatest sport that you can possibly play, man. It's a team sport.
Here's what you never lose is that competitive spirit, right? That, man, what it drives you and makes you who you are.
He has this passion for football, has this passion just for grinding through adversity.
But I respect the hell out of it. And to me, we owe it as players, coaches, anybody that's associated with, to give it everything you've got, because it is an unbelievable game, man. I love the game, man. And I love people that give it all they have to it, too.
Yeah. How many times a week does Dan Campbell cry?
What's making you emotional right now?
When you see your players give all that they have, and you lose that way, it's tough. I'm pretty ecstatic, man. This is special. You don't want that for them. This started a long time ago. You're built for this. I was proud of them, and I love the fight they have in them, and I love the grit.
You're about to cry.
I know. I just get emotional talking about it.
I
a
love
little bit.
it. I mean, it makes me so pumped when you talk about football.
So when it comes to the vision, the compatibility, the passion, the brotherhood, etc., it all kind of stems from Dan Campbell's top-down approach.
And here's what I know about winning teams. When it starts at the top and it works its way down, it goes right into the locker room.
Dan Campbell believes that if you can get the owner, the managers, all of the coaches all aligned and rowing the boat in the same direction with the same vision, that will trickle down to the locker room.
And when it's functional up top and it's flowing and, man, we're efficient and we're moving and everybody knows there's one voice, those guys feel it. And that's how they play. And they grow. They have pride in what they're a part of. This thing has started exactly where it should start to have success, and that started with Sheila.
It seemed to me that the whole organization needed to somehow be on the same page for this to work. And Brad and Dan are perfect examples of that.
But man, when you got a vision, you have a clear picture of where you want somebody to be or what you want it to look like, Brad's got that, man, and I'm that way too. He's an out-of-the-box thinker, no different than I am.
What is it that stands out to you?
Well, just their collaboration, which was part of the culture change I wanted to have happen here. They listen to each other, they talk to each other, and I think the combination together is really spectacular.
This is Sheila Fordham. If you want hope, she's the one who's bringing the hope, because this all started with her. She wanted us to work as a team up top, like a legitimate team up top. But there's no secret. You got to get good people around you who are all pulling in the same direction. It's team. It's all about team. There's no ego.
Everybody in this organization now feels valued. Everybody feels when they come to work that they're a part of what's happening here.
Let's do this thing together where everybody knows we're all in the same boat. We're all rowing the same way. Knowing that those players downstairs, they will feed off of that, and they'll understand that, and they'll fall right in line. Like, then it'll go down. It'll trickle down to where it's supposed to. And those guys are going to have pride in where they're at, who they play for, how they're going to play.
Whenever you think about a GM and a head coach being on different pages, you can kind of tell by the way an organization operates from the outside. You might not be able to hear it from behind the scenes. You might not know what's going on behind the scenes, but watching an organization, you can tell whether or not everybody's on the same page.
I'm so pleased and certainly could never do this alone. I have a lot of support.
And man, that's the biggest killer of any team is when it's not working at the top.
And I felt great about our leadership, and I obviously still do.
Dan Campbell's leadership and coaching philosophies turned the Detroit Lions program around, a program that has been hopeless for decades, and he took them all the way to the NFC Championship game.
What are you most proud of, Dan, about this group this season?
Just what they are, what they represent. And look, not everybody can come here. Not everybody can play for us, but that group can. And they do things a certain way, and they respect the game, they respect their teammates, and that's what I'm most proud of. I'll go to war with those guys any day. We didn't quite have the horses we got now, but those guys, you talk about laying it on the line and going toe-to-toe with anybody and willing to fight to the end. I'll never forget those guys.
One of these teams is moving on to Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas in 2 weeks.
I appreciate guys that lay it on the line. Maybe you're outnumbered, maybe you're not the most talented, and maybe the odds are against you, and nobody believes in you, and I respect the hell out of those guys that'll fight, you know, and that's what we're about. That's what we're about, man. That's how we roll here.
Even though they lost the NFC Championship game, I believe that Dan Campbell's impact goes beyond the team. I believe that we all share his same vision and that we all feel like we're a part of his brotherhood. And for the first time in a very long time, the future looks bright for the Detroit Lions. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please do me a favor and like and subscribe. Do all that stuff. I appreciate it. Until next time, cheers.